Looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I am your host, Chris, and I'm looking at this tantalizing cup of water. I think I deserve it. Hold on 2 seconds. All right, thank you. Recovering a little bit. Let me first start off by explaining this show is a mixture of all sorts of stuff. This is a live show where I am going to do some quick recaps of the comics that I read this week, which is a lot this time, so really quick recaps. Then I'm going to be drawing something. Today I'm going to draw Obi-Wan Kenobi, since his show is about to start. And then we will talk about all sorts of comic book related news of the week while I also take your questions. Let me greet some of the people that are here right at the beginning. We've got Andrew Jefferson, Samuel, Zoe, Vox, A-Man, Dr. Doom, Ricky Prickles, Sir Mr. Howell, X, Jerf E, my sister Jean, Xavier. Lovely to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining me. That will make this a lot more fun because we'll get to interact, get recommendations from each other, prompt some discussions. I have been battling some headaches. I'd argue that they were kind of migraines this week. That is why the latest Comic Tropes is not quite up yet. It should be up as soon as I finish this live stream. I've got a little bit more editing to do, not very much, and then I'll update it. So a couple hours after I finish this live stream, it should be up. Sorry for the delay. Tough week because I also had work and, just sucking it up and going in. Good to see everybody here. Let's see. Who did I not say hello to? I've got Dr. Settleton, Mark, JSA, Big Gay Dave. Awesome. Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andrew Jefferson says, that's a name he's not heard in a long time. Let me have another drink. I'm a little dehydrated. I did go out for some drinks with my coworkers after work last night. So just a little dehydrated. But let's get into it. There's so much to do that I really can't waste any time with small talk. Who wants on any of that small talk? No, you came here for meaty content. That content is so good. Look, first of all, only 3 books that I bought as new titles this week. So let me blast through them. Radiant Black. So glad I discovered this a few months ago. I am loving this superhero story. This is, your classic mix of superhero drama and sort of like supporting character melodrama type stuff, but it's really done in a very fantastic, modern way. And there's not tons and tons of weird continuity to sort of confuse you or anything. So it's just a nice straightforward story. Radiant Black is a superhero played by Marshall, but was originally played by his friend before he almost died. And Marshall is starting to go down sort of a dark path because he's just feeling like he's being pulled in too many directions, doesn't really have a good support network for himself, really only has his best friend, and that's about it. So he kind of takes things over the top. He really wails on some bad guys in this issue. He's got gravity powers, and as you can see here, he's just snaps a guy's arms. Now, that guy was shooting at him. He didn't kill him. But this guy isn't, this guy isn't quite Batman. And he's got some really powerful cosmic abilities. So it's a little over the top. And he's going down a dark path. So we shall see where that leads. But all I can say is it was interesting. I love this homage cover here that Marcelo, is it? Marcelo Costa? I'm bad at names. Yeah, Marcelo Costa did. And he says here, after McFarlane. That was a pretty famous Incredible Hulk cover that Todd McFarlane did when he first worked at Marvel. This was, it was the reflection of the Hulk in Wolverine's claws. And so they've just sort of done a play on that because this bad guy has knives and stuff like that. So you've got Radiant Black reflected there. But anyway. Fun. Moving on. I do recommend that, by the way. We've got issue 20 of Firepower by Kirkman and Samnee. Kind of a superstar team. Probably doesn't really benefit from me either recommending it or not, because these guys are huge, aren't they? what can I say? The artwork in this issue is some of the best. And no surprise there. But here's where I'll give Kirkman some credit. The first several issues are this sort of epic thing of a massive, like, kaiju-sized dragon devastating Hong Kong. And Kirkman doesn't get in the way of this art with, like, you know, any sort of dialogue that seems forced. No, he lets the artwork speak for itself. Samnee paces this out beautifully. It seems big. It seems epic. It's incredible. It really is beautiful. And I can also say, as somebody who has visited Hong Kong several times, Samnee does an excellent job of getting these backgrounds and establishing shots. It looks like Hong Kong. He did a great job there. After that sort of intro segment, it goes to, like, sort of these main heroes who, here's where it gets, like, a little confusing. There's just so many characters at this point, and all these different martial arts factions. The important thing is that they're all going to team up against this massive dragon and this evil kung fu master that's controlling it. But it's a lot of characters, and even as somebody that's been reading it since the beginning, I'm sort of shaky on who a couple of them are, which isn't great. They all look different, but I'm like, I can't really remember their story right now. But it is building up to something epic. The artwork is absolutely part of why I would recommend getting this. I would just say that in this particular issue, there's not a lot of interesting character drama. It's what I call a chess moving piece, where you have to get the pieces into position in a convincing manner to then go into, you know, your sort of third act, if you will. So anyway, it's cool. I will always credit Kirkman for this. 3 pages of letters that he himself is answering. So, you know, yeah, you've heard my thoughts on it. I'm not like, it's not my favorite book ever. It's good, but I think both Kirkman and Samnee can do incredible stuff, and I'm not quite seeing something like that blows me away that's new yet. You know, this does sort of feel like a riff on Iron Fist, something like that. And I'd love to see something just a little bit different. We'll see. Final thing that I bought that was new is A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, Issue 7, Rick Remender, art by Andre Lima Araujo. And at this point, the main character is this guy, and he is an insurance claims adjuster who, through a series of coincidences, tried to help a lady that was being targeted for assassination. She did get killed, unfortunately, and he's trying to protect his son Xavier. They're living off the grid in a commune, but the kid gets lured away, and this killer, there's this bad guy assassin, and he is legit scary and creepy. He is disturbing. Remender can definitely write creeps that creep me out. Boy, can you tell that I write sometimes? All I could say is it's pretty good. It's moving forward at a good pace. This book, A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, will read fantastic in the trade. I don't think it reads as well issue to issue for this particular series. It's not that it like quite always ends on a cliffhanger where you don't feel you got a complete story, but it's all part of a bigger whole, and reading it like 4 weeks apart, it's disjointed enough that it's not my favorite presentation for this particular story. That's all I can say. Hello, Fernando. Hello, Meow Nian, Jamil, Novacaster. Great to see so many other people. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to share with you that yesterday was my country's Comic-Con, and I managed to get Sam De La Rosa's signature. Good. That's great. Hello, Robert. Now let me blast through what I got for Free Comic Book Day. I'd love to know if any of you went to Free Comic Book Day at one or more of your stores locally. I hit 2 of my stores in this area, so I got a bunch of comics. And there's some cool stuff. I also bought a few back issues and trades because things were on sale at the stores. First one is Archie. these are designed to give you a sense of what's going on in each publisher's world at the time. So I'm really reviewing it not necessarily as how good is the art or how good is the writing, so much as how much does this hook me to make me curious to read more of these comics. How well does that work? Because this is a marketing tool. Free Comic Book Day, designed back in 2002. Wow, it's been 20 years now that I think of it. 21, right? Because it started in 2002. So 21. This is the 21st year. Designed to get you interested in some new comic publishers. Designed to bring you into an actual physical comic book location. Maybe buy some other stuff. Totally cool. Amen says lives too far from a comic store. I'm sorry. For me, I love getting this free stuff. And I would say that this Archie comic didn't quite do the job for me. I have liked plenty of what Archie has done in the last maybe 10 years. This one didn't necessarily hook me, and I don't have anything I can object to per se. It's an interesting mix of types of stories and art styles that I think is all totally appropriate. A little horror, a little comedy, a little drama, depending on the book. But I wouldn't say it hooked me. So, I'll put that right in the middle. It's not bad at all. I'd give it something like a C. Picked up Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I will admit, I loved those shows. Buffy and Angel, loved them. Thought they were great. Certain seasons are better than others, certain characters or writers and stuff like that, but I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Love it. Haven't really read much of the comics except for the first couple of years of official continuation where Joss Whedon was overseeing it with some superstar writers and artists. But now Boom Studios has the rights to Buffy, and I guess they've rebooted it. So it's not quite the same. And it sort of catches me up here. There's a bunch of pages done in a yearbook style giving me a loose idea of who these characters are, and I can see some of them have been, updated slightly, which is fine. Totally fine with, a new version of things. But I couldn't make sense of it, because I haven't read the comics before, and this is, supposed to, help me understand. It gives me, a loose idea of the types of things that are going on. And then they've got one short Buffy story at the back. I don't love the artwork. I don't need it to look necessarily like Sarah Michelle Gellar, but to me this just doesn't really look. I don't know. I just didn't find this character too interesting or cool or anything like that. Some of the action is better. What this artist is doing with vampires and monsters. That's cool. I appreciate that. But it wasn't quite enough for me to understand exactly where things are. That said, it ends with Willow. She's usually been Buffy's sort of best friend and sidekick. She's the Slayer, as compared to Buffy. So I think that there's sort of been some sort of reality shift, or some sort of magical thing going on. Could be an interesting story. Just don't know if it's for me. It didn't quite hook me, so I'd give that more like a C- to a D+. Nothing bad, it just didn't hook me. Dark Crisis. So that's DC's big event, right? The last issue of Justice League of America from a week or two ago killed off a ton of the Justice League. And this has sort of people going through a museum trying to understand the history of Justice League. Cool. That's a good table setting thing. Plus they've got a little action scene that's tied in where the Flash goes up against Clayface. Also cool. Totally down with it. And then they've got a few pages that explain some of the past crises. Did I say that right? Crises, maybe would be the word. That have happened in DC history. Just the real high-level stuff so that you know where things are. And there's a vigil for the fallen heroes. This could go in some interesting directions, seeing who rises to take the mantles of, these super important characters. It's all sort of real high-level stuff, so it's not super meaty, but it's not bad. It's not bad. I'd give this one something closer to a B-, because it made me a little interested, and I haven't been that interested in DC Comics events for a while. Let's see, got a friend that couldn't get Dark Crisis Special Edition, which is a shame because it was easily the best of Free Comic Book Day 2022. I'd possibly argue that, but I did say that it's decent. And he's now paying $15 for one on eBay? Oh my god. I did hear somebody on Twitter say that like they came to a comic store and someone just grabbed the whole stack of Dark Crisis comics and ran. So I guess for some reason, I think it's more an indication that people are interested in this event. You know, you're not just killing or sidelining one hero, you're killing off like all the big ones, just about all the biggies. And that is something different for a while. I mean, I'm sure they'll come back somehow. I can't figure out how yet, though, so that's also part of the mystery. I don't know how they'd bring them back. It seemed very definitive. Let's see. Andrew Jefferson points out that Dan Mora did the first few issues of the Boom Buffy reboot from a few years ago. Oh, well, then I'd be interested in reading those, because I do like... Excuse me, hiccuped. I do like Dan Mora's art quite a bit. Maybe that's a good place for me to start. So anyway, yeah, I guess Dark Crisis is popular, folks. Again, I give that somewhere around a B to a B-. This one was a kind of a pleasant surprise, although I'll fully admit I'm biased. I love the Ninja Turtles because I discovered them pretty early on in my comic reading career, like still then the black and white Mirage comics, just before the cartoon debuted, which I was still young enough to really enjoy that first cartoon for a little while. This is the Free Comic Book Day, which is setting up the next arc. Would never have expected this stuff, but we've got like the four brothers, and this is all actually looking very familiar, and someone's sort of watching them, okay? And they all jump into action. They're dressed a little darker than usual, and they're fighting, looks like police, like a SWAT team. That's a little weird. But they fight, and then they like run away. And then who's watching them? And I'm going to come back to like these pages because it's interesting. This character, who's that? She's sort of like a Frankenstein type of Ninja Turtle, right? That's not Jennika. That is a female turtle. This is not Jennika, who was introduced a couple years ago. No, this is Venus de Milo. But this is the comics version now of Venus de Milo. Venus de Milo was a very unpopular addition to a one-season-long live-action Ninja Turtle show. It was called Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. It came out the year after the first cartoon ended. It was done by the guys that did the Power Rangers show, and it wasn't very good, to be honest. It was way too silly, and it was very cheap. It was very cheap. So it didn't look good, and didn't have good fights or anything. Anyway, like, generally, that new female turtle that they introduced on the show wasn't super popular, but now they're calling her Venus de Milo, but it's a very different character, and it definitely has something to do with either a parallel world or magic or something, because these turtles don't quite seem right. They seem darker than they should. Here's what's really fun about this Free Comic Book Day issue. So you get this little snippet that does interest me, okay? Not just because of Venus. It's like, well, why are the turtles sort of like wearing these white masks and beating up on cops? But also, like, this art looks really familiar. Here's what they do in the Free Comic Book Day issue to make it worth it. They reprint the very first Ninja Turtles story in black and white with the screen tones and everything. And does that start to look familiar, what they've done here? They're using the same layout. But originally, the Ninja Turtles were fighting some gangsters and stuff like that. And then they, after they finished that fight, they disappear into the sewer. Well, all that stuff still happens, but now it's happening for different reasons. But anyway, I thought that's fun, that you can like look at both to make a comparison, see what's changed, see how a different artist approaches the same story. I'd give this at least a solid B, if not a B+. Because look, the Free Comic Book Day, it's never going to give you quite enough, well, to use the same analogy I was using earlier, a metaphor, it's not going to give you quite enough meat to like really chew on. You know, it's trying to hook you. It's giving you a taste. But at least this is a more complete taste and a cool comparison. So I like that. I think that that's a good value. I would recommend this one if you can find it. I think it's pretty cool. And if you can't, all I can say is it's teasing like the next arc, which is going to be called the Armageddon game. That's good. This is the regular like writer and artist team, and that's what's going to come up for the next story arc. Could be cool. Could be a good jumping on point. You need those in comics, ongoing comics. Hello, Marte. Yes, sir, Mr. Howell. I saw that crossover with Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers. Ooh, awkward. Here's one that's also pretty popular. This is Spider-Man Venom. And it's written by the brand new ongoing team of Zeb Wells and artist John Romita Jr. So, you know, the art you can count on looking great. John Romita Jr. is not phoning any of this in. He's given this plenty of detail. Some weird stuff going on. There's an ad in there. You get that with Free Comic Book Day. Peter's fighting a mailbox that came to life. I don't know how many of you have been reading comics long enough to remember this. This happened in an X-Men crossover event across all the Mutant titles over one summer that was called Inferno, where demons started taking over all sorts of like just mundane city things, and it crossed over into titles like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, etc. You know, I think Punisher even, and they were all like fighting demons that had taken possession of inanimate objects. Well, that's kind of weird, right? The last page here gives us a hint as to how that's happening. This is Madeline Pryor, who was the Goblin Queen. I thought she had died, but I guess she's back. This is Ben Reilly, Spider-Man's clone. I thought he died, but I guess he's back. And I guess I don't know if this is a symbiote or if he has supernatural abilities now, but I guess he's gone bad. Like I say, I'm not up to date on Spider-Man, but this interests me. It does. It's a cool team up. A couple people saying that they're not fans of John Romita Jr. I'm going to do an episode at some point explaining why I definitely am. Okay? I really am. I'm a big fan. There's also a little hint in here that some stuff will be happening in the Venom title, possibly related to this stuff. I'm not clear on that yet. It's Eddie Brock getting a glimpse into the future. But that's a little bit even deeper into continuity than it's harder to explain. But it hints at like this sort of big war that's going to happen with a bunch of symbiotes. Okay, could be all right. And then for some reason, they give us a 1, 2, 3 page Avengers story. It's nothing. That's nothing. The Spider-Man thing is the only one that interests me. Not really the Venom or the Avengers, but I'll give this a B- personally. I thought I'm a little interested. I might continue with the Spider-Man book and see where it goes. Somehow Madeline Pryor has returned. Yes. She came back in the end of Zeb Wells' Hellions comic. Okay, so it's a character that he knows. Got it. Interesting. Okay. I picked up Donald Duck. Why not? I was hoping that it would at least have a Don Rosa story, and if I was really lucky, maybe they'd reprint a Carl Barks story. Carl Barks is like got the best Donald Duck stories. Unfortunately, no. They've got 4 stories in here from 1990, 1982, 1965, and I guess a brand new one or something. The third one is the best. Like, these were whatever. It didn't really interest me that much. The super goofy story, didn't really interest me. But there is a Donald Duck story here, and you can just sort of tell if you've watched enough Disney that it has the 60s Disney art style. It's good. This artist is Al Hubbard. I think Al Hubbard is good. I wasn't super familiar. Anyway, I liked the third story. Didn't really care about the other 3. So, unfortunately, I'd probably give this one like about a D. It didn't really interest me. So this is a big issue. Walking Dead, obviously one of the biggest comics to have come around in the last 20 years. It's ended. This is a spin-off, though, in a way. It's at least set in that world. And it's based on Clementine, the character from the Walking Dead games from Telltale. Oh, wow, my first super chat of the evening. Thank you, Novacaster. Venom sucks. Sometimes Venom sucks, sometimes Venom's a little interesting, but I respect your opinion. What I really respect is thank you for the super chat. That really, really is nice of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so, so much. I looked to see if it had Carl Barks, said Andrew Jefferson. Yeah, if it had a Carl Barks story, might have been an A, just for even one. I've heard, one person, in my Twitter was like, oh, that book sucks. And so I was, before I'd read it, I was like, will it? It's by Tilly Walden, who's done a bunch of young adult, comics and stuff. And I was like, well, I like the character of Clementine. Tilly Walden is somebody whose work I can respect. Why? I liked it. I liked it, folks. Hey, it's a black and white book set in the world of zombies. It isn't as a total gore fest, but it also has the advantage of focusing intensely on one character instead of sort of a wide ensemble. And that can be a good thing. We really get to know her well. And, she's just this young kid. I don't know, maybe 12 or something here. Plus, she's gone through an adventure where she had to cut off her left leg below the knee. So she's just sort of making her own way in a world of zombies, a kid with crutches and stuff like that. Well, she gets taken in by some people that are sort of running an almost Amish type of town. And fortunately, she gets a little bit of a better prosthetic, but then moves on. This is definitely something I think you could safely let a young adult read because it isn't a gore fest. It's a little bit of a scary world, but I bet that the world can seem scary when you're this age. When you start realizing, hey, someday I'm going to have to not live with my parents. Someday I'm going to have to get a job. Someday I'm going to have to move away from my friends. That's scary. And metaphorically, it works well here. So I thought it was cool. I'm down. This interested me. I'm probably going to pick that book up. They also have a Q&A with Tilly Walden. Awesome. I think that's valuable to understand her a little bit better. And then they've got two other books that Skybound Comet, the new sort of young adult version of comics that Kirkman's company is making. They've got two here. One's called Machine Boy. One's called Sea Serpent's Heir. Over the summer, there was a thing called Skybound X, the 10th anniversary of Kirkman publishing comics through Image, and they had some of those short stories of Machine Boy and Sea Serpent's Heir. That didn't interest me as much. But I'll tell you this is the thickest, by far, free comic book day book. And it's a good size Clementine story. If you like the world of Walking Dead, I don't think it disappoints. I think it's pretty good. This one I'd give a B+ to an A-. Probably a B+ just because I personally wasn't super into the other two stories. But whatever, that's all bonus, and there's nothing bad about them. They just didn't hook me the same way. I'm excited to see a new angle on the world of The Walking Dead. Romita Jr.'s popularity is because of nepotism? I think he's definitely proven his worth over the years. I've got a lot to say. I think that anytime, I don't know. I like his work. I like his work a lot. I think he's really, really good at conveying a story. But I do understand that style does become something you either like or don't like. I do get that. Marvel had another free comic. Actually, Marvel had a few free comic book day books. This one is to tease their upcoming event, Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, Judgment Day. I can tell you, I loved the idea of Avengers versus X-Men. Upon arrival, it depressed me. I was like, I haven't enjoyed Civil War 1 or 2 either. I like seeing a superhero go up against another superhero for a little while, but I don't like it when it's a big event with two teams like diametrically opposed philosophically. If they're both going for like the same sort of noble goal, like, you know, for instance, there was the Justice League of America versus Avengers, and they're both trying to save their entire universe. Okay, that's a fine enough reason to have two teams go up against each other. But when they're like arguing about like, no, this is the way you should save the world. No, this is. I'm like, no, I'm not as down with that. The art is good, and I guess the idea is, I'm trying to understand, to be honest. I guess the idea behind it that will be the threat is tying into a specific thing that's going on in the X-Men comics, where they have found a way to harness like 5 different mutants' abilities together so that they can actually resurrect a mutant when they die. Like every day they sort of like telepathically scan that person's mind and memories, and then they can actually generate a new body if that person dies and implant like sort of their backup. And I believe that, if I'm interpreting this right, that Druig and Eternal is starting to be convinced that that actually is a deviation. And of course the Eternals' whole mission is to hunt down deviants. So if they think that the mutants are turning into deviants, if I'm interpreting that right, and honestly, like, the comic wasn't clear enough for me. I thought it would be with writers like Kieran Gillen and Jerry Duggan and stuff, but I didn't quite get it. But okay, I guess that's what would put them at odds. And then the Avengers are just sort of being like, no, don't fight. They're going to just step in the middle? What? I don't know. Maybe it'll work. I'll tell you what this reminds me of. When Marvel's movies started doing well, Marvel Studios, and they didn't have the rights to make the X-Men movies or the Fantastic Four movies, you can probably remember they like way downplayed those characters in the comics, and they started trying to heavily push the Inhumans as a thing. Now that there's an Eternals movie, I sort of just get the sense that, again, Marvel is like trying to push them. And it's like, so that's not really coming from a good creative place. That's coming from, like, you know, a business place. Now, sometimes a writer can be given that assignment and be like, okay, I'm up against the wall. I've been given these parameters of an assignment. And sometimes they can, like, come up with something really, really clever. But this one didn't interest me. There's also a short story in the back that was a little more interesting. I guess Blade the Vampire Hunter has a daughter now. So it's got a super short story of her going up against a vampire. That could be cool. Nothing weird or wrong about that. And then there's sort of like a hint of what's going to be happening in the X-Men books regarding this same event. For some reason, Mary Jane Watson is involved, as in like Peter Parker's old girlfriend. The important thing is that this is so dark in a way. Moira McTaggart used to be a longtime ally of the X-Men. Eventually it was revealed that she was a mutant, and her ability was every time she died, she would reincarnate in her own body, like go back in time with all of her memories. And ultimately, all that's important about that is that she upset Mystique and Mystique's lover, Destiny, who's a precog, and they took away her powers and gave her cancer, I think. And so Moira became a bad guy, and she put her mind into a robot body because she doesn't want to die. You know, she's been immortal. And now she plans to kidnap, or not even kidnap, like take over Mary Jane Watson's identity. What? I don't even know what to make of that. That just is very weird and dark. Like, it seems unnecessarily dark. I agree with you, Black Phoenix. I think they ruined Moira McTaggart. Look, sometimes things can be rebooted in ongoing comics. Maybe someday Moira will be great again. I don't really care for her as a villain. I don't right now. There's a quick little Marvel Voices, like, anthology here. Just a bunch of new creators that they've got. Some of these stories were cool, some of them didn't interest me. The Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, it's harmless, but it didn't interest me, okay? Fine. Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, got it. There is a single-page story about Brother Voodoo. That's not enough to interest me. But I did like this. This is told from the perspective of Uatu, the Watcher, who looks over everything. And he talks about all the different characters in the Marvel Universe that are Native Americans. And there's more than I realized, actually. There's more than I realized. And the stylized art is just gorgeous. I like this quite a bit. These few pages are just fantastic. So that was kind of cool. There's a short thing here about Miles Morales. Beautiful artwork. Beautiful. And then there's a short story here, drawn by Will Spertatio, who I haven't seen, do Marvel stuff for a while. But this is an original superhero that he created, a Filipino superhero. She has water powers. Cool. Then there's a few pages about the gay characters in Marvel, which some of them are cool, but this sort of recap didn't really do much for me. Oh, but then there's this one-page story at the back that I did like about a superhero guy who is a shark, so people are initially scared of him, but she is actually a really sweet person. I want to know more about this. All right, moving on. Here, you know what? This is probably my favorite of the Free Comic Book Day stuff. I'm going to try to wrap it up soon, folks. Just a couple more. I've never read Barbaric before. This is by Vault Comics. The art in this is so damn good. Artist is Nathan Gooden, who I hadn't seen before. Writer, Michael Morecki? I don't know, I'm guessing. So, there's this guy. He's a barbarian, okay? All right, so far I'm in. He's got a supernatural axe. He just wants to sort of rampage and loot and stuff, but he is bound by this axe to only kill people that are guilty. It's a bloodthirsty axe, but it won't let him go after people that aren't deserving of death. That's just a premise. Folks, the art is so good, and it's badass. It's so good. So I'm going to have to pick up Barbaric, because this interested me. And look at how big this is, too. You can already tell that's a bigger story than pretty much any other Free Comic Book Day. This is a full issue that introduces you to the character. It did its job. It got me interested in this title. Great art, cool premise, a full story. It hooked me. I'm curious. I want to know more. Well done, Vault. I'd give this an A as far as a Free Comic Book Day. I think it's the best one out there. There's only 2 more Free Comic Book Days. There was a Best of 2000 AD. First story here by Al Ewing, who I really liked on Immortal Hulk. And then there's some, I think, classic stuff from 2000 AD that's reprinted, but it's definitely got some of their top talent, like Pat Mills, John Wagner, Mike McMahon. Anyway, the first story is a cool Judge Dredd story. He's being as brutal and over the top as possible. He goes after a politician, and he says that the politician has been projecting too much spit, when he says his P words and T words that he's been spitting, and that that spreads disease, so that's a crime when you spit in public. 30 days per offense. He's going to look through all the guy's campaign stuff, see how many times he spit, and give him 30 days for each time there was some spit that came out. It's brutal. That's good. And then there's some other classic sci-fi stories that 2000 AD has published before. It's good. This is a B. This is a good one. It's cool. It's a good read. Andrew Jefferson with his super chat. Jeffrey Verge, the artist of the Native American Marvel characters, has been in the hospital with some serious issues the last few months. I didn't know that, Andrew. Thank you for sharing. Loved his work. I'll definitely look that up so that I can understand what's going on there a little bit more. Last new comic book day book that I got. Bunny Mask Tales by Aftershock Comics. I guess it's a horror book with this lady in a bunny mask that, like, will kill people and, like, seduce people and stuff like that. There's some good creepy horror stuff in here. There's this part is the one I like the most. That's what I was trying to find. There's a guy who looks through a hole in the wall and he can see this couple, like, wherever they are. But, like, he sees, like, you know, this lady in the bunny mask, and eventually she looks back at him. And I feel like that's a good element of horror, where you feel like if you're looking too close, you'll get noticed by whatever you're sort of looking at. That was a cool moment. That was a cool moment. But it's pretty weird. I don't know that it's necessarily a book I'd keep reading. I think my friend John liked it more than I did, though, so maybe I'm just a weirdo. I'd give this one more like just a straight C. I'll just show you the other things that I picked up, but not reviews. So at the first comic store I went to, they gave us all these, which are like reprints of some famous Marvel issues. They just gave us these. So this one's, you know, Len Wein and Herb Trimpe with the first full appearance of Wolverine against the Hulk. D.W. Dunphy says this one's for George. We'll be talking about Mr. Perez's work shortly. So thank you for that. Much respect. Much respect. And then this is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby with Thor. It was fun. It was fun to reread this stuff. The next store I went to gave me this as a free comic. It wasn't that interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I don't really care for it that much. It's an Avengers story set in the world of that recent video game, the Avengers video game. I played it. I didn't think the game was that excellent, so sort of understanding the background of the Avengers from that world beforehand didn't interest me that much, so I didn't even really read this too much, I have to admit. I just sort of flipped through it. Sorry. They also gave me a back issue of Sad Sack. Haven't had time to read it, but that's cool. And a back issue of X-Force, which was the final chapter, apparently, of Executioner's Song. I read that back in the day. Don't remember it very well, but maybe I'll reread it. It looks like it's still sealed, so there might be like a card. Oh, yeah, there's a Marvel trading card in there. So I'll get rich off this. I did buy this. It's a good price. I got the first issue of Moon Knight. Doug Mensch, Bill Sienkiewicz. Kind of a classic, right? Kind of. But I like Moon Knight. I like the show I like the show, by the way. It just wrapped up. I went in, I think, with reasonable expectations for Moon Knight. I expected it to be a TV show, not a movie. Like, 5 to 10 minutes of action per episode. Mostly just focusing on character drama, interpersonal drama, and internal conflict. That's what it gave me. So I like that. Is the Avengers game tie-in worse than Batman FaZe Clan? No. The Batman FaZe Clan book is worse. These were cheap. I got these 2 issues of Spider-Man going up against Rocket Racer. And hey, they both have to team up to take on Big Wheel. How long until Sony gives us a Big Wheel movie, right? Hey, Doc. Morbius and I are teaming up. We think it has something to do with Spider-Man. We need you, Big Wheel, to join us. Oh, Gene, I'm glad you enjoyed it too. That's really, I appreciate it. No, Miguel, unfortunately that Batman FaZe Clan book is very real. It came out about 3 weeks ago. It's terrible. Terrible. It's a one-shot, folks. FaZe Clan is like a pro game clan. They often place in tournaments and stuff like that. And there's a book, and basically the Riddler creates a new game console, and it's sucking people's brainwaves or something, kind of like that Batman and Batman Forever movie. And Batman's like, I've got to stop him. And Robin's like, you're not the expert here, Batman. We've got to get the help of FaZe Clan. And so Batman's like, will you help us? And they're like, you're so old and uncool, Batman, but like, sure, why not save the world? And so they all go in and like beat like digital versions of Batman villains like Mr. Freeze and Scarecrow and stuff. And like at the end, Batman sends them like a friend request on his gaming console. It's so embarrassing, folks. It's so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, they're also infamous for scamming kids. Yeah, not a big fan. I already gave them the idea, DW. All right, so I picked up an issue of Tomb of Dracula. You know, these were on sale, so I just picked up a random one. I like Gene Colan's art in those. And I listened to some recommendations. I posted on Twitter, I was like, what kind of, you know, either back issues or trade paperbacks should I pick up? And some of them, like, appeared multiple times. Some people recommended this crime book, That Texas Blood, so I'll be reading that. I got recommended a book called Once and Future, which features artwork by Dan Mora, who I've recently come to appreciate. And I'd read this when I was younger, but I guess I don't have a copy. I must have read it from the library and forgotten that I didn't own it. So, yeah, I picked up a copy of Mouse. It's a great book. So, all potential things to talk about. I've got some comic book news to talk about, but I'll do that while I draw. So let's get some tools here. Is there anything that you picked up on Free Comic Book Day that I did not just recap? Very curious about that always. So yeah, like Moon Knight wrapped up, and the next big Disney Plus show is Obi-Wan Kenobi, starring Ewan McGregor. That's got a lot of potential in my book. I think Ewan McGregor's a very good actor. I've liked lots and lots of his movies. I think that he came out of the prequels looking the best out of all the actors. I think some of the other actors delivered some pretty clunky performances, even if they were good actors. But I always sort of liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, so I'm totally down with seeing some more of his adventures. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh, you picked that up as a comic. Okay. And Mike picked up the Bone Orchard mythos. How was that? Edison Sears says, I picked up some back issues of the Blackest Night run. Okay. My local comic shop didn't have a Free Comic Book Day yet. Oh, okay. That's stinky. Hey, sister, you're in the chat. I'm just curious, how are you feeling? I know you're a little sick, so just curious if you're up for typing me a little update so that I can just know where you're at. I hope you're doing all right. The Titan also got Bone Orchard. All right. Didn't Boba Fett have a lot of potential as well? I liked the Boba Fett show okay. It wasn't quite as good as some of the others, but I liked it okay. Grendel and Gen 13, huh, Jamil? I remember that stuff. Wow. Okay. A-Man with a super chat. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that a lot. A cool recommendation I'd give you is Johnny Ryan's Prison Pit. If you're into pro wrestling and Berserk, this story is for you. It's absolutely insane. I am into those things. All right. Thanks for the recommendation. I'll try to remember that. Much appreciated. Still not great. Had to call in for tomorrow, but I'm definitely improving. Hoping for some better sleep tonight. Yeah, I hope the same for you, Jeannie. Sorry that you're not feeling tops. That's too bad. Just keep taking it seriously. Wish I could be there for you. We live on other ends of the country. I like the idea of Psych actually making a hit group. I got free comic book day versions of a fun, bizarre, raunchy slice-of-life book called Fun Girl, left over from last year, and a true story called Guardian of Fukushima. You know, I didn't see the Guardian of Fukushima book, but this all sort of ties in. I haven't had time to read it yet, but my sister got me this. Ichi F, or Ichi Hu, a worker's graphic memoir of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. This is not written by a guy who was trained to be a manga artist, but a guy who actually was one of the workers dealing with the cleanup when the Fukushima nuclear reactor got hit by the tsunami. So I'm still excited to read this book. Looks pretty cool. Yeah, looks pretty cool. You know, could be alright. The Hulk Grand Design books were so awesome. I don't even like the Hulk, but those comics were great. I like the Hulk. But yeah, Jim did some interesting stuff creatively with the storytelling in that book. I agree. Let's see. Somebody says, wow, that looks great, but I guess I missed what you were talking about. I'm sorry. Let's get into some of the news, and I'm gonna start with like the most serious piece of news so that we can just sort of acknowledge it and share anything that's important, and then try to maybe move on to some happier stuff, just so that we're not dwelling on dark things. But the sad fact is, we all knew this was coming. Didn't know exactly when, but George Perez passed away. Great artist. Great artist. I made an episode of him on the show Comic Tropes, if you're not familiar for some reason, or if you want to know some more details that you might not know about. But yeah, he came down with pancreatic cancer and made the decision to instead of like fighting it because it was so aggressive, he just decided to enter hospice care and live the last of his days as comfortably as possible and just try to be present for his friends and family. But it's a loss. It's a loss. Last week we were hit unexpectedly with the death of Neil Adams, and then in less than a week, George Perez. And those guys were both kind of titans in mainstream comics. I would argue that probably Neil Adams innovated more, but personally I liked the look of George Perez's work more. He did a lot of great stuff, and he was a hard worker that did a lot of comics, and that part, makes me happy because it means we've still got a lot of his work to remember him by for a long time, which is nice. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to sort of reconcile and come to terms with losing a great artist like that. And he was 67, which, I'm sorry, but to me, maybe it's because I'm getting older too, but 67 to me does not seem very old, and I just really wish he'd had a lot more years with us. It's tough is all. It's just tough. Curious about any of your thoughts on George Perez, or even just something as simple as if you want to like shout out what your favorite book was that he worked on. If you've got something like that, I think that this is a really good time to share something like that. And then, we'll move on, but just want to pay respect, pay tribute. I wasn't expecting it this soon, to be honest. I really thought that we'd have some more time with him, and that he might get the opportunity to sort of do maybe a couple more of the commissions that he was aiming to do, something like that. It's good that the reprint of the Avengers Justice League of America book came out when it did. You can start to understand why they did it in such small quantities. It was because it was just something that both companies could agree to on really expedited, fast terms. Yeah, I'm seeing some thoughts. Let's see. George's first ongoing book had him introduce the first Hispanic hero. Yep, White Tiger. Made him from the same type of neighborhood George was from. Yeah. Artist for so many seminal stories, a huge and sad loss for the community. Yes. I'm glad he went knowing how loved he is by his fans and family. Boy, did he seem loved. He seemed so loved. Guy known for big hugs. Guy known for posing for really funny pictures at conventions. Novacaster points out something. There was a bit where Marv Wolfman and George Perez had voiced themselves on Teen Titans Go. You could probably find that on YouTube. But don't go away now. Keep watching my show. Oh God, please. The algorithm needs you to keep watching and commenting and sending super chats, or I'll be pouring on the streets. Now, anyway, worth looking up. It's pretty darn funny. Let's see. Loved his work on Teen Titans. Absolutely, Dunphy. Absolutely. Perez and Busick on Avengers. No question, Shane. One of the best Avengers runs, period. So good. Let's see. New Teen Titans Omnibus. Avengers. Legion of Three Worlds. Yep, that's an underrated one, Meow Nian. Wonder Woman. Yep. Thanks for pointing that out, Sir Mr. Howell. By the way, Jeannie, my sister, you used to get a Wonder Woman comic. It started with issue 1. That was by George Perez, both writing and drawing it. That's who we're talking about, in case you're not sure which artist I'm referring to. But yeah, you used to really like that book. You read that for quite a while. Sirens. Interesting, Rick Ray. Interesting. Tom Veitch, yep. Neil Adams, and now George Perez. How many more great and influential writers and artists will be taken from us? That's what happens. The March of Time. None of us get away. Right up until the end, we probably all sort of think we will. But of course none of us do. We gotta just make our peace with it. Sorry, just a little quiet because I'm just focusing on a tiny amount of fine detail here, and then I will jump right back in with some more news that you can use. I know I still have them. Oh, do you really? That's great, Jeannie. I didn't know that. I didn't know you still had them. Well, if you sell them right now, you can put your dog through college. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. No. For all you guys know, a meteor could come crashing right through my roof right now, and you could see me pass away live, so you don't want to tune away. You never know. I'm personally telling you that there's a great chance that a meteor could come crashing through my ceiling at any moment on this show. Yeah. A-Man has something a little more positive that I'd love to acknowledge. I watched the first episode of the new Star Trek series. I found it amazing that the Spock they casted is absolutely jacked. I also watched the first episode of Strange New Worlds. Folks, easily the best Star Trek series of this sort of new generation. Best Star Trek series since Deep Space Nine, in my opinion. It's so good. It's way more positive and uplifting than sort of the more serialized, darker stuff like, Picard and Discovery, which I like to an extent. I do, but I really liked Strange New Worlds. The characters are really great. They're so They're so interesting and likable, and they're just trying to, like, make the universe, or, but essentially humanity better, which definitely harkens back to the original series. And they're also sort of solving a problem of the week, like Next Generation show kind of did. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, I recommend it if by any chance you have, what service is that? Paramount Plus. I liked it a lot. Anson Mount is the actor who plays Captain Christopher Pike, and he's interesting and cool. He's kind of got, like, he's a blend of Picard and Kirk, because he definitely is a little more introspective and wants to solve things with negotiation and debate. Use those tools. But he's also a little down-homey and stuff like that. He's got, like, all sorts of metaphors and slang and stuff like that, which make him feel like a more real person. It's good. It's really good. I think even if you haven't watched Star Trek before, it's a good one to jump into, because there's no real deep continuity that you'd need to understand at all. There are some very subtle nods that big fans will get, and that's fun, but you don't need to know them at all to understand, like, the story and the characters. So, yeah, strong. Real strong. No spoilers, Novacaster. Let's not do any spoilers about Doctor Strange. Oh, wait, okay, it's a joke. Says, can't believe they got Michael Jai White to be Spawn. Yeah. Yes, Andrew, the guy who was Black Bolt on the Inhumans TV show, which was god-awful, is leading the new Star Trek. And he's a good actor. He was hampered by a really bad script. I would say that the casting in the Inhumans show was definitely not the problem. They had some good actors on that show. Super tiny budget, just a bad direction of, like, hey, we're all going to Hawaii, we're on the run. And to cut off Medusa's hair in, like, episode 1 or 2, it's like, what? So now you're left with people whose powers can't really be represented on screen. There's a guy who can breathe underwater, a guy who can stomp really hard, a guy who can find the weakness in things, a guy who can yell really loud, and a person who has big, powerful hair, and she's just sidelined. Was he on Hell on Wheels? I didn't know that. Edison Sears says, it's accessible for a first Star Trek show? Absolutely is. Yeah, really easy jumping on point if you don't know Star Trek, and it's good. It's cool. It's positive sci-fi. It's aspirational, And it, like, gives it's the kind of, like, speculative fiction where you're like, well, what if, a society was a little bit like this? Like, how could we solve that problem if we were just a little more advanced and a little more patient? And I like that. I like that a lot. That's what I sort of want out of Star Trek. Just having some fun with hair while I chat with y'all. What other news was there? Yeah, I didn't make it past, I think, 3 episodes of Inhumans. I might not have even finished the 3rd one. Not so good, Al. I've got a note here of, like, some other comic book news of the week. There wasn't really as much as in the past weeks. Here's one that's a little more TV related, but hey, I'm drawing something because it's going to be on a Disney Plus show. This is about the Disney Plus show that'll take place after Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ms. Marvel, which is a show I'm looking forward to. I like Kamala Khan. I find her a really interesting character. Very likable and different enough, kind of not the same as Peter Parker or those. Anyway, she's good. Kevin Feige, producer of all the Marvel Studios stuff, has confirmed she's not going to have the same powers that she has in the comics. I won't say that I'm not disappointed by that, but if there's a reason for it that he explained, and his reasoning at least makes sense. He says, look, when Kamala was introduced in the comics, Marvel Comics was pushing a certain thing, and that was the Inhumans. So she was given inhuman powers. That's not what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is pushing right now. So to introduce her and try to like shoehorn that in is a lot. Okay, that makes some sense. So instead, they're giving her powers that will be like more tied to like Captain Marvel somehow. Something cosmic. They didn't go into specifics, and that's good. But that does make a bit of sense, because she is going to be in the next Captain Marvel movie, and she's a big fan of Captain Marvel. There is a certain amount of sense that makes, tying it in thematically to something else. So we'll see. We'll see. I think her powers in the comics are fairly unique. So I do think it's a little bit of a shame that we don't get to see that. But those powers are somewhat similar to Reed Richards' Mr. Fantastic. And that is obviously got a lot of potential if they decide to, make that as a movie sometime soon. I mean, they say that they're developing it. You don't want to necessarily repeat stuff too much, so I do get the logic. I'm not going to say that I'm not disappointed, but I understand the logic, and it's okay by me if it's still done well. Her specific powers have never necessarily been the thing that defines Kamala. It's the fact that she has powers and what that does to her life. So I think you can still tell basically all the same types of stories that make her interesting and have her character intact and accurate while giving her some somewhat different powers. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it seems her powers are much more cosmic based, says Edison. I think so. Yeah, we talked about that last week, Andrew, that John Watts stepped down from doing directing the Fantastic Four movie. I think that there are two reasons for that, though. One is it looks like Marvel and Sony and all the actors are going to do a Spider-Man 4, in which case it's very likely that they will and have already been in talks with John Watts to direct that again, which would tie him up, right? And second, there are rumors that a fan favorite actor who has also done some directing might take over Fantastic Four, but I'll leave it there for you to look into on your own. Let's not talk about that in the chat and stuff like that, because you either know what I'm talking about already or you don't, so we don't need to spoil it for anybody. But that's a rumor. It makes sense. Let's move on to the next piece of news, actually. How many of you out there watched the CW superhero show Legends of Tomorrow? Let me just wait a moment to see how many people even respond to that with an affirmative, because I'm very curious how many people watch it or watched it at any point. I watched it for 2 to 3 seasons. Matthew Vaughn? Well, you could do good. Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you here. Let's see. Nono says, those are good points, but it's normalizing the modification of characters to suit fickle corporate decisions, which is how we got Rise of Skywalker. Well, I'd push back on that a little, Nono. The Star Wars movies, they were more like, we're going to release 1, 2, 3 on these dates. We're going to use a bunch of different people. Figure it out, and you're up against the clock. Whereas the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Kevin Feige has a pretty firm idea of what he wants to do every next several movies. And a lot of times when they do reshoots on these movies, it's usually just small things to make the fibers connect to the next and the previous movie a little better. What I've heard is that, like, the Doctor Strange movie, for instance, had some reshoots. I like that movie, by the way. I'll talk about that in a moment. I won't spoil anything, but I liked it. Originally, Doctor Strange, I think, was supposed to come out before Spider-Man No Way Home. So that would have been the movie that introduced the multiverse and stuff like that. Whereas it was really sort of Spider-Man in the movies that ended up doing that. And Doctor Strange was in that movie, and that was important. So I think that because they swapped the slots on those, Doctor Strange, the movie, probably had to, like, just have a couple little scenes that they had to reshoot to sort of structure it a little differently. You know, that it wasn't introducing these concepts necessarily for the first time. Let me jump back. Some people saying, I used to watch Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow was accessible. The only DC I like is Peacemaker. Sure. Yep. Watched the first 2 seasons. After a while, tapped out of all the CW shows. Just too many episodes. I kind of agree, Rick. It wasn't that any of it was necessarily outright bad, but it was too much for me at a certain point. I was like, Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, and then they'll have like a couple other things. It was too much. It was too much for me. I didn't have enough time to watch that many hours of TV. Anyway, the reason I ask, Legends of Tomorrow has been canceled, and some fans are disappointed because it actually ended on a cliffhanger. Not great. The producers definitely thought that they were going to get another season. Nope. But what they did get right before it was canceled was, you know, like, I guess DC sort of understood, okay, the show's not doing that well. We need to give them a superhero. They've been sort of taking a bunch of the characters out of the show. They've been like, no, we want you to de-emphasize, like, you know, all these different superheroes, and plus you've got like a minuscule budget. So anyway, but they gave them Booster Gold, which is a time-traveling superhero. Like, it should have been there from the beginning. And in fact, the producers said that they've asked to use that character every single season, and DC has said, no, we've got other plans for him. You can't use him on Legends of Tomorrow. But then at the last minute, at the end of this 7th season, they did give them permission to use Booster Gold. And then the show got canceled. So the plan was for Booster to be like one of the main cast members going into the final season. But not happening now. Anyway, just do a crisis event and reset. I guess you must be talking about the DC movies, if you're saying that. Like, that would make sense to me anyway. I don't know if it's even necessary. Maybe just reboot without Crisis, because Crisis looks beautiful. It makes sense, but it's possibly too convoluted for its own good. Like, I don't know that you always need a story to say we're rebooting things, as compared to just rebooting things. Maybe you don't always need to have a story to explain it. Just my 2 cents. I don't know. Guy from Clueless was Booster Gold. Yeah. What's his name? Donald Faison, if I'm remembering his name correctly. Better known, I would guess, from, what was that show about doctors? Scrubs? I think it was called Scrubs. But anyway, yeah, he was Booster Gold. So they got an actor. He was horribly miscast. I didn't see it. What made him horribly miscast? Because Donald Faison is a decent actor, kind of known for comedy, and Booster Gold is usually a funny character. So what did he not get right about it? That's an interesting criticism, and it might be valid. Again, I haven't seen it, so I'm open to hearing your 2 cents. CW shows tend to get way too melodramatic. Well, some of that, Caliban, is, look, when you don't have much money to do a show, you have to do what works. And on TV, that is melodrama. There's a reason that things like soap operas and various drama shows, like, are what always do well. It's because you can wring cheap or inexpensive drama out, like, without, like, having to have a huge budget to do things. Missiles on Motorcycle says, we'll do something because at the moment they are just going to keep making terrible CW shows. Aquaman 2 that no one is going to watch, and then pay not enough attention to Suicide Squad. Well, look, you say that the CW shows are terrible. I'm not going to really defend them, but I will say, they make money, and that's all it has to do at the end of the day. It's a business. Suicide Squad, I loved. It didn't make money. So it's possible that, James Gunn might not be somebody that DC has as their go-to guy. His movie didn't do well. I liked it. I'm glad we got it. I'm glad we're getting Peacemaker. I hope they do give him another chance on something. But, it didn't do well. And they're in a business. Do you always draw just the one picture, or do you ever mess it up and have to redraw the outlined one you feature? No. If I make a mistake, Carrie, I just keep going, because this is more of just a learning exercise. I'm not doing this art for, any sort of publication or anything like that. So if I make a mistake, it's frustrating, but I just keep going. It's really just so that I'm doing something other than just talking to you, If it was just a camera on me and I was just talking, maybe that wouldn't be that interesting. And I don't have sort of a producer that can be like cutting in clips of things for me to react to. It's all just me. So, yeah. Anyway. Let's say, hello, Sigamigs. Thank you for saying that. Let's say, interconnected universes just don't work with a Feige. Just let the directors do what they want without studio oversight. You mean without a Feige? Yeah, if you want to do an interconnected universe, you have to have one person at the top that does have power to say, nope, this element needs to be in it. Otherwise, definitely do what you want. But that's just what this is. It's not making an individual movie. It's a very different thing. Look, essentially, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a TV show just with a massive budget. That's what it is. Anyway, Infotron isn't producing. Infotron ain't producing anything. It could have been the pandemic that screwed Suicide Squad. It could. It didn't help. But anyway. Black Phoenix answered my question about why Donald Faison wasn't good. He says, I just think that there are obscure black characters at DC that Donald Faison could have played that could have gotten some spotlight on Legends. I mean, I'm sure that they could have, but does that make him a bad choice if they were going to cast Booster Gold? If they were going to have Booster Gold, and you need, a guy that has some, can act, but, has done comedy, because that's who Booster Gold is. He's a bit of a goofball. It seems to me like that's a decent casting decision. That's a name TV actor. That it makes sense to me on paper. I didn't see it, so maybe he didn't do a good job somehow, but it makes sense to me why they would do that. Feel free to correct me, folks. Let's see. I'll move on to another piece of news. Oh, cool. My sister is texting me. She's in the chat. She found some of her old comic books. That's awesome, Jean. Yeah. Here's one she just sent. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's the Wonder Woman annual with George Perez working on it. Also, every single artist on this is good. Art Adams, Ross Andrew, Brian Bolland, John Bolton, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and Kurt Swan. That's cool. That's great. That's so good. Oh, here's one for you guys to solve. A crime for you all to solve, okay? So, last Monday the 2nd around 11 p.m., a comic book store was broken into and had about $20,000 worth of merchandise stolen. That was in Niagara Falls. It's a store in Niagara Falls. So, if for some reason you happen to live in, like, you know, that northern New York part of the country, or possibly even over the border, you know, somewhere near Toronto or something like that, and you see a ton of comics looking to get unloaded, might just be worth keeping your ears open, your eyes open, and who knows, maybe you hear something. All I'm trying to do is give that a signal boost. I always feel bad when a store is robbed. It's not right. Any kind of a store, but this show is about comics, so thought it was worth mentioning. Sorry that happened. Yeah, they just broke in, smashed the door. Apparently that's going to cost about $500 to fix, so that's not nothing. And then, like, stole about $20,000 worth of comics. $20,000. Yeah. Yeah, Daniel, that is an all-star lineup of artists on that Wonder Woman annual. So cool. So cool. Don't put internet users on solving crimes. No. Novacaster, that's fair point. Let me shape what I was just saying. I was saying be aware. I'm not telling you to go out and solve the crime. Don't find the wrong person and string them up. Please. Don't do anything you're not sure of. What I'm saying is, if you happen to see a ton of valuable comics in that area being unloaded, you might want to tell the store, maybe call the police. Don't do anything yourself, okay? I live just over the border in Canada, keeping my eyes peeled. Exactly. Probably nothing that any of us can do, honestly. Maybe these people just keep a hold of them. Or maybe they're smart and they don't sell it for like 2 years or something like that, right? So I'm not saying figure out who did this. Watch the crime footage. Please don't. Please don't, like, try to watch any, like, footage and then, like, accuse your next door neighbor who's just a nice, innocent people. Nice, innocent people. That's pretty good English there, Chris. Anyway. Just saying, be aware. It's sad that it happened. That's all. What other news do I have? Folks, I've got plenty of news. I just got here. What did I miss? Well, Giovanni, I spent the first half of the show doing quick reviews of everything I picked up on Free Comic Book Day, which was a fair amount of stuff, to be honest. And then we're just going over news while I draw. And I've got more news to talk about. Here's something that also involves a lot of money and a lot of comics, but is way more positive. In Sacramento, California, a store called A1 Comics just spent $600,000 buying a collection. The so-called Winters Collection. Massive collection of comics. It's said to have every Marvel comic between 1961 and 1990, among other things. Wow. Wowie, wow. That store is going to start selling that stuff on June 1st. So, the Sacramento area, if you're anywhere near there, you might want to check out A1 Comics beginning of next month, because, wow, sounds like they definitely had quite the haul. And it's not just Marvel Comics, just to be clear. That's just like one of the more prominent things. But you don't spend $600,000 unless it is a sizable collection, because you need to make a profit and stuff. But so that implies a very large collection. I mean, anytime a collection actually has a name, like, that's something. Hey, Steve Sorensen is here, and thank you for the super chat. Hey, Chris, I'm a little late. That's fine. But bummed about George Perez's passing. I met him and Neil Adams at Wizard World Philly 2012. George was a good man. It certainly seems that way. But hey, we all get to still enjoy their art, their contributions. They will long outlive them, which I think would make them happy. And lucky you that you got to meet them. Lucky you. That's at least a memory that you can hold on to, that you say, like, hey, I had at least some sort of connection to these people. More than most of us get. So good for you. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Very, very generous of you. I think a bunch of those stolen books are slabbed. Maybe they need to start putting a tracker on those silly slabs. You know? And I'm not talking like something, what do you call it, like electronic. I'm saying, like, if it's on a slab, it should have like some hidden codes or something like that, just so, like, you know, just like you can track money, like you could track that specific book. Maybe they already do have that, to be honest. I don't know. It seems like, if I can think of that probably the slabbers, the graders, have probably also already thought of that. I don't know. Hey, Jim. Wow, folks, look at that. An actual professional comic book creator, Jim Mahfood, has jumped in. And look at his positivity. Viva Neil Adams and George Perez, both grandmasters in the finest tradition. Jim, you clearly have a much different style than either, like, you know, Neil and George go for both realism, you know? Like, in the case of Neil Adams, you know, near photorealism, hyperrealism, and George Perez, pretty realistic too. Would you say that either of them influenced you in any way, though? You can certainly appreciate them without them being a direct influence, but I am just curious if you would list them as an influence. What else is being asked in the chat? Got to pay attention. Mustn't let it go. Oh, wow. Steve with another super chat. Thank you. And somebody does say CGC has a barcode. Okay, so that makes sense. I also met Stan Lee at Wizard World Philly. I bumped into him by accident, but I always say my life is like an MCU movie. It has a Stan Lee cameo. Stan is someone I was lucky enough to get to interview and get a picture with once. Two separate things. You know, that's definitely a huge creator in the industry, and I'm glad I got that set of memories. If you're curious about the interview, that's on this channel, by the way. Giovanni says, Jim, I love Girl Scout. And then Rick Ray says, Girl Scout Stone Ghost has been great this year. Look at that. I love that positivity, folks. I think the thing sometimes that I like most about comics is its diversity, as in, like, how many different types of stories you can tell, how many different types of artwork can tell those stories. I feel like the medium is so versatile that it can do all those things and still be comics, like, you know, and noticeably comics. It's very interesting to me. I would like to know what your thoughts are on the comics that J. Michael Straczynski wrote. You know, kind of hit and miss. I liked a recent book that I read by J. Michael Straczynski, which was called The 12. I thought that was pretty interesting. But, you know, I didn't really care too much for his run on Spider-Man. I felt like it was just too magical and stuff. It just didn't speak to me. It's interesting that Spider-Man can meet all the different sort of Marvel characters, from, like, you know, the cosmic to the magical and stuff like that, but I didn't feel like his book... I feel like his book works best with sort of street-level crime as compared to, like, fighting magical stuff. That's me. Influenced by them in that they obviously put their hearts and souls into their work on the highest level. And both guys had tremendous work ethic, something to always keep in mind. That's a great point. It doesn't always have to be like a stylistic influence, right? I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're right. Both Perez and Adams, man, did they produce a lot of work in their time. Not every artist produces that much. They produced a lot. So when you produce that much, you're probably that much more likely to have a few things that become iconic. You know, they're not all going to hit, but if you're producing a lot of stuff, you can only improve, and you can only have a better chance of doing something really great. Thanks for coming in, Ricky. Is Obi-Wan doing an I'm watching you motion with his hand? No. It's weird, but when I decided I would draw Obi-Wan, I looked at a bunch of pictures and stuff, and one thing I realized that I hadn't really picked up when I'd watched the movies is he does a pose. He points two fingers when he like holds his lightsaber. He goes like this. He doesn't just sort of go like this, like with his whole hand spread. He doesn't point with one finger. He points with two fingers. That's probably something Ewan McGregor himself like came up with as part of how Obi-Wan trains and stuff like that. Oh, good. I did get it right. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really generous of you to share some of your insight with the rest of us. I appreciate it. JMS had some wildly outlandish but fun Spidey books. He wrote Peter Parker as a character really, really well. I don't disagree with you there. I think he's good at writing characters. I just didn't care for all the magic. Jamil Frost has an interesting question for me. If I could go back in time and I got to interview Jack Kirby, what would you ask him? I would probably ask him as to how intentional it was that he seemed to be inserting his sort of religious and philosophical ideas into his comics. Like how much of that was intentional, and whether he was interested in studying comparative religion, because it didn't seem like it was all based on Judaism. But like sometimes he seemed to have a lot of interest in various like American mythologies. Yeah. That's his lightsaber form 3. Okay. I think that Obi-Wan two-finger point is from Wushu films. Wushu sword practitioners do it. Do they do it in Wushu? I don't know exactly what it means, whether you're like trying to center something, or if it's just something to help you focus on balance by like you're just doing the same motion. I don't know. They reference it in Rebels when he has his final showdown with Darth Maul. It's great. Okay, thanks for the 2 cents. Nice to have you here, Comic Book John. I like comics. Well, I like comics too. And also hello to Caveman. Lovely. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Obviously, I'm drawing really slowly tonight. I'm just sort of distracted, telling stories and talking with you all. Appreciate your patience with me. I was talking with my wife today about how, like, I really hope we can take some time to travel somewhere soon, because I just need a break, a change of pace, to refresh the batteries. I don't know where that would be, but I hope so. You know what, one smaller trip, I consider it smaller, is that I'd like to do is I am giving some very serious thought to going to New York again this year. Typically, I do go every year, and I see my best friend from college who lives in New York, and we always go to the New York Comic-Con together. So I'm giving some thought to that. That might be fun. Is anybody else here thinking that they will definitely go to New York Comic-Con? Or are you still sort of up in the air on something like that? Or are you definitely not going? I like that convention. It's very mainstream, but what's cool about it is the spectacle and the size and scale of everything. It's just so fun. Which Golden Age creators would you most like to interview? You got to start with like the classics. I would love to talk to Siegel and Schuster. I would love to grill Bob Kane. I would love to interview some of the people that got like sort of forgotten or are lesser known. You know, how interesting would it be if we could just know a little bit more about Bill Finger and what he brought to the table? How interesting would it be if I could get who was the guy I did that was like did those really wild, crazy, violent comics and then he just disappeared? The guy who did Stardust the Super Wizard. All of a sudden I'm forgetting the creator's name. But you know, he just disappeared basically. Marvin Nation says, I already have tickets for Sunday. It would be nice to meet you and take a pic. Jim says, I'll be there, set up in Artist Alley. Nice, Jim. I'll be there, based in New York, so I can't wait. Lovely. Missiles on Motorcycle says, got my Pro Pass. Oh, somebody says, Japan is supposedly accepting tourists in June. I'll tell you, folks, if that's the case, you're going to see me in Japan real soon. I'll be making episodes there. Skipping the cons this year, maybe next year. Yeah. I'd love to get a ticket to Saturday for New York Comic Con, but I'm pretty sure they're already sold out. Oh, thanks everybody pointing out Fletcher Hanks. Not necessarily a guy that like I admire his work. I wouldn't say that, and I don't think he was a good person, but I think he would be a fascinating interview. Steve says, I bought 4 passes for me and a couple of friends. Wow. I guess I got to jump on that, see what I can get. I really wanted to go Saturday, but I bet that's sold out. I'm slow on some of this stuff. I am going Saturday. That's awesome, Steve. Congrats on getting the tickets already. I'm in this weird area where I don't quite feel like I should be applying as a pro. It's like I usually do like one small comics project a year type thing, you know, just enough that like technically I'll do like 1 or 2 things that I'll draw, and it's like I do this show, but like I don't quite feel like that qualifies me as press. So yeah, I don't know. Is New York's Comic-Con more comic book focused, or is the movie, TV, games media completely overtaken it? Well, it's huge, Caliban. So is there media stuff? Yes. But I would say that it still has a very strong comic book focus. It has a couple things going for it. All the big publishers do show up, you know, and they all have a big pavilion. Not just a booth, but a pavilion. The big ones. It's got lots of indie press as well. It's got back issues and merchandise and stuff. The Artist Alley that they have, biggest one I've seen anywhere. It's so big. I've never done Comiket, Victor. I would love to. I would love to do a couple... There are 3 international comic conventions I personally would love to hit in my lifetime. Comiket in Japan. I think it's called CCXP in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Angoulême in France. Those 3 I would love to hit. I would just love it. I think it qualifies you for a press badge. You do a pretty good show. I think it's too late to apply anyway for that, Caveman, but thank you. If I got extra, I'll hit you up. That's nice of you, Steve. But no matter what, I'd have to get a minimum of 2 because I'm not going to like go without my wife, you know? So I got to figure that out. I got to get one for me and Chrissy and make sure that my buddy Evan, who that's a big part of why I go to New York, just to be clear, is to see my best friend from college. And that's just sort of an annual thing that we do is we go to the Comic-Con together. Because we both like comics. But I think that what I like about the New York Comic-Con is mostly the spectacle because there's just so much cosplay. There's so many pavilions. I don't buy that much there, to be honest. I really don't. But I'll take a lot of photos. I made an episode. Actually, I've done 2 episodes of Comic Tropes at New York Comic-Con. One was sort of a game where me and my wife and Evan and his now ex-wife, but like, you know, we all are friends. We all we played a game trying to see the things that we agreed you would like always see at a convention, like, you know, Poison Ivy cosplay, you know, I don't know what else, like just inappropriate things that aren't like related to comics, you know, like a car, you know, like Chevy selling a car, or like foot insoles or something. Like we made a game out of it one year. That was fun. Jim says, I still think New York Comic Con is a fantastic comic book show, and their Artist Alley is arguably the best in the US. I agree. I love the Artist Alley. I spend probably half the day on the main convention floor and half the day in Artist Alley, just browsing and sort of talking to people, sort of, because Artist Alley always has so much passion on display, you know? And the coolest thing about the specific Artist Alley in New York Comic Con is that a lot of pretty big name pros get themselves a table there in Artist Alley, whereas at a smaller convention, you know, they're sort of the featured guest, and like, you know, the Artist Alley is just sort of the local emerging talent, I'll call it. So it's interesting, you know, you go to Artist Alley at New York Comic Con, and you'll see a lot of big names, which is really fun. Deadpool and Mashup comics were two of the ones you looked for. Thank you for reminding me, Andrew. It's been a little while. And then I also did one that used some footage at New York Comic Con. It was, I came across a Marvel exercise book. Yeah, like Stan Lee writing the Marvel superheroes teaching you exercises. Like Ghost Rider teaching you how to do, like, leg lifts or something. And also in that episode, like, looking at the DC and Marvel cookbooks. So we were, like, cooking the foods that they had, which was pretty much all gross. And then I would go and I would find people in, like, the cosplay to match the page of the exercise book, and I would ask them to do that exercise and ask them how effective they thought it was. So I'd get, like, Thor and Ghost Rider and Luke Cage doing the exercises on camera. Oh, cool. You went to Mice, Victor? Yeah, I love small press cons. I love them. Con, it's New York City. Impossible to drive, costly to stay at hotels. I have driven to it several times, but I guess I get what you're saying. It's not the easiest. If you book it in far enough in advance, you can stay pretty close to the convention for decent prices sometimes. I would recommend looking in Koreatown. It's walking distance to the convention center, and it's usually pretty affordable and has a few nice hotels. You know, if you have more money, then you can do sort of more of a close to, say, Times Square or something like that. But, yeah. Stay in Jersey City. Yeah, one year I did that, actually. Does Ghost Rider even have muscles? I think he has all the muscles, just to be clear. I think he has all the muscles. All right, time to get back to some artwork here. What are y'all distracting me for? God damn it. How dare you? I'm trying to do work here. So yeah, last night I hung out with my coworkers and had a lot of wine and sang a lot of karaoke. Oh, and we were doing it at one of our coworkers' houses, and I I pranked the host. You guys tell me if this was funny or mean. He's not mad at me, so I think it's okay. But he had done a shot or two. So I took his shot glass when he was in the other room, and I filled it up with cooking oil, and I gave him a shot glass full of cooking oil. He was pretty surprised. Oh, man. What did I think of the Moon Knight finale? You know, I liked the finale. I thought it ended pretty darn well. Loved the little Easter egg for Mr. Bill Sienkiewicz. That was nice. I'm a big fan of Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean, I showed you guys what I bought, right? Where is it? Yeah, I got this like for a free comic book day, like because of sales and stuff. So I got that. I'm happy about that. I am calling the liquor police on you. I didn't do anything wrong. Gross, nasty, yuck. Laughing my ass off. Sounds like a super fun night. Yeah. I know that's a little bit of a jerk move, but all he did was like he spits it right back in the cup. It was fine. Nobody got hurt. It looks like liquor when you put cooking oil in a shot glass. I like pranks. People that know me know to be aware. So in a way, maybe it's their fault. Maybe. Let's see. If he's not mad, then it's funny. He's not mad at all. No. That was early on. We had a lot of fun. We sang some songs together. We told stories. It was great. It was great. I like my coworkers a lot at my job. I do. They're really interesting and kind people. I'm very lucky to have so many of them in my life. It's a big part of why I'm still doing that job, because I want to commit 100% to just doing this show, and that would probably also give me enough time to move my own comic project forward at a faster pace. But I'm cautious. I don't want to walk away and not be able to come back to it type thing. And also, I just like my coworkers a lot, and I like hanging out with them and doing things with them. And that's easiest when you actually work together. Don't be surprised when the next one is on you. I told him, I was like, look, I know that doing that has opened me up that now you can get me back. I was like, it would only be fair. So I'll be aware, but I won't be mad. I won't be mad. What do you do for work? Oh, sorry, I've mentioned it a couple times. I sell cars. Yeah, it's sort of weird that that's where I've ended up, but whatever. I do well at it. It pays our bills. I wish I could just do this full time or something, but I'm just too nervous to commit to it 100% for now. If I had more subscribers, it would be a no-brainer, But it's not. YouTube itself doesn't pay that much, just to be clear. It doesn't. And Patreon can sort of go up and down. So I make a decent amount at it. I've switched to doing my job part-time and doing YouTube what I consider full-time. It does mean I basically work every single day. I don't have an off day, I might go see, say, the Doctor Strange movie, but that isn't a day to just relax and play video games and stuff like that. No, it means that was Thursday. And I remember Thursday, got up, read a bunch of the comics that I'd be reviewing, sat down, finalized a script, shot it, was, and started editing. And then I went to the movie later in the evening. So, and that was how I fit that in. It wasn't just an off day. That's sort of how the show works. Happy to talk about that if you guys are curious. But, but yeah, YouTube itself, isn't paying that much, and I could be doing more ads. You guys saw that I did a few sponsored ads, and I get offered a lot of them. But it's a hassle to do those, and I don't love doing them. Some of the products I do think are fine. I don't have an issue with the product if I've agreed to it. A lot of them are crappy that I say no to, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's a grind. Because when you agree to do an ad, like, they want you to run it by them before you ever upload it. And I'll be honest, most of my shows I'm uploading as soon as I finish it. I'm not like working 2 or 3 weeks ahead. I don't have that kind of free time. I wish I did, but I don't have that kind of free time. So like basically, once I finish the episode and I'm like pretty confident that I got it right, it's getting uploaded straight away. Which, just to be clear, has led to me doing mistakes like twice over the last like 5 to 6 years. Because there were 2 separate times where I uploaded a working draft that wasn't quite the final version, and I had to like take it down and issue a correction. It was frustrating. But anyway, that's sort of like beside the point. Yeah. If I have to like make my episode and get them to approve it and then still have time, like, to upload it, it means I have to like sort of like cram what I'll do in, say, like a 3-day period into like a 1.5-day period to give them like that time to see it and respond, so that it's very stressful. Did chat talk about what they got for Free Comic Book Day? We did. We talked about it for like the first 45 minutes. Without mentioning the brand, which products did you say no to making an ad for because they were just terrible? Not necessarily always terrible. Sometimes just not appropriate. But I've said no to like all the NFT ideas. I'm not convinced at all that that's got staying power. I don't feel comfortable advertising that to people yet. What else? Like hair loss formula. And I say that, and like in this latest episode that I'm going to upload later tonight, oh my god, I've got the worst camera angle on myself. Like it makes me look like I've got a bad receding hairline, and I honestly don't think I do. I haven't been losing hair like in the shower or anything. But my hair's like longer right now. I haven't gotten a haircut in a while, and so with it like really long, like I've just got like it like angled right where the part is, and I've got the part in a really awkward way, and it does look like I've just always had sort of a high hairline, like my whole life. It's like a somewhat high hairline. It was never like down here or anything. It's always been here. But anyway, yeah, I turned down like stuff like that, like hair loss formula. I just didn't feel like enough of my audience needs it. It doesn't make it a bad product. Certainly like stuff for like skincare products and stuff, I'm like, well, maybe, but I don't think so. A lot of different like meal prep things, a lot of different like TV shows. Yeah, all sorts of things. I don't know. You know what? I mean, I get like literally like about 2 to 3 offers a day. So here, I won't like name names, but I'm going to like see what the last couple of offers that I have are, if I can find them. I've got a lot of like mail to sort through, but let me see. To promote like an indie comic, but I tell them like, sort of what my like rate is going to be, and that never works, like people like always want me to like advertise their comic, and I get that. That's fine, but like I tell them what the rate would be, and it doesn't make sense. Here's one for like a bunch of clothes, bunch of different like types of clothes, but I don't feel like clothes necessarily fits. Here's one for like a tablet, like a drawing tablet, but they want like a specific episode about it, and I'm like, well, that's not really what I do. Here's one where I thought that they were inviting me to be on their podcast to talk about something, and once I finally like agreed and everything, like after a while it became clear that no, they were asking to come onto my show to talk about their podcast. I was like, no, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, did you ever planning to do the Phoenix Jones podcast? Oh, well, since you asked that right when I said that, no, I'm not on that podcast. I thought that they were asking me to be on it. No, they were asking to come onto my show to talk about the Phoenix Jones podcast. To me, that didn't make sense. I told my story of my time being a superhero with Phoenix Jones, okay? I can tell that. Phoenix has made lots of mistakes. and it's not like we hang out and are friends anymore, but I wasn't necessarily interested in piling on top of him type thing, like asking them like, oh, what kind of dirt did you get on him? I would have gone on their show and told my specific stories if that's what they wanted, but they didn't want that. They already made the podcast, I guess. So anyway, I basically teach 2 throwaway subjects. Doesn't help that we have a very conservative provincial government in charge. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess that's a conversation that was already being held on the chat, not with me. Got it. Thanks, Caliban. Oh, lordy. I'm tired. What I'll be doing as soon as I finish this live stream is wrapping up the last bits of editing. Since that video will be coming up today, I'm just going to tell you what it's about. I did an episode about Steve Englehart. If you're not familiar with him, he's just a writer who I would argue just crushed it in the 70s specifically. Like, definitely worked past that, but just an insanely successful career in the 70s. So and really influential on a number of characters. Doctor Strange, Captain America, Batman. Really made big changes for a lot of these characters. And a bunch of characters that are currently being used in like Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So anyway, that will be coming out like a couple hours after I wrap up this, because I've almost finished editing it. So I just need to do a little more editing, render, upload. That takes time. So it should be interesting. And some of the creators who I've been doing a lot of research on to do an episode, I've definitely been considering something on Neil Adams. Like talk about like the most influential stuff that he did in his time. And then I've been looking at Mike Allred is one that I'm close to being ready to do. Who's another one that I'm about ready to do? All of a sudden I'm blanking. I thought that I was going to be rattling off a bunch of names, but now I'm sort of blanking. Well, anyway, those are 2 of the ones that I'll be doing soon. And I'm trying to do a little bit more on artists moving forward. I feel like I have been doing a lot of writers and maybe not enough artists. I don't know. Just something I've sort of got in the back of my mind. Disney should do a what-if type show for Star Wars. Well, wasn't that Star Wars Visions, basically? Do I talk about New Guardians? A little. I mostly talk about the super influential stuff he did. But yeah, it does come up. Good question. Let's see. Dan DeCarlo. Maybe. Dan DeCarlo's an interesting idea. Yeah. Somebody that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough, considering how much he did. That's not a bad idea. I'd have to do some like research to get to a point where I'm closer to being ready for something like that. I've got some other, like, I'm always researching a bunch of people at once. Dex Baker just sent a it's not a super chat, what's that called? A super sticker of I guess the fastest hippo in the world. He's kind of running Naruto style with, like, his arms back. What about a video on Todd McFarlane? At some point, I'd probably do one on, like, an overview of Todd's full career. But I did one episode early on looking at, like, his Spawn book, and I did an episode where I actually interviewed him. So I would call it like a little lower on my priority list. As far as maybe like an image founder, I'd probably be more inclined to do one on Eric Larson at some point in the near future. I would like to do that. We'll see. Kevin Smith once said, encouraging artists will always yield benefits discouraging them will cost you a lot more. Oh, that makes sense. Mark Grunwald would be an excellent idea. I do like Mark Grunwald. I grew up really enjoying his Captain America run. But you're right, like things like Squadron Supreme, he was good. And I mean, that guy is Mobius. He's the guy that knew all of Marvel's history for them. He was the keeper of all that info. And by all accounts, very much liked by everybody. But yeah, possibly like somebody that doesn't get remembered as well as he should. So that Mark Grunwald is a very good suggestion. Thank you. How about Bob Montana? Yeah. Archie Comics is still around, and they could have just disappeared right away if it wasn't for Bob Montana. So that would be cool. I believe I saw an Archie statue once up at Lake Winnipesaukee, and I think it was to give kudos to Bob Montana. I think that's where he retired or something, or maybe he grew up. Roy Lichtenstein, I'm serious. I had a discussion about him with my students about him being an art thief. Possibly as part of a larger discussion. That said, I did do an episode on Russ Heath when Russ Heath passed away, because I think he's an underrated creator. Oh, I know who else I was thinking of. Joe Kubert. Anyway, I talk about Lichtenstein within the Russ Heath episode. John Romita Sr. or John Romita Jr. I want to talk about both of them. Yes, Andrew Jefferson. Interesting that you point that out. Both of those are on my list. I am currently rereading a bunch of Usagi Yojimbo, so that at some point soon I can do an episode on Stan Sakai. And I'm talking with some folks. I don't want to spoil it. I'm not talking to Ramona Fradon, but I'm thinking of doing a Ramona Fradon episode. Yeah. I did an episode on Walt Simonson's Thor run, Black Phoenix, so while there is, of course, more to say there, sometimes that just means that like it doesn't become as much of a priority for me if I've already sort of addressed a creator. I definitely am never against hitting it a second time, because I'm positive I could do a better job the second time around. But I also want to sort of like, there's so much new stuff that, it sometimes slows me down. Have I? No, I've never done an episode dedicated to Carmine Infantino. Of course, being such an influential figure, he has factored into a lot of other episodes that I've done. But no, I've never done one dedicated to him. So that's always a possibility. Yep. I was going to suggest doing a video on Naoki Urasawa. Yeah, I did do one like right at the beginning of my show, more or less, where I talked about, I think, Pluto. But whereas he's kind of my favorite creator, I would love to do a more in-depth look at his entire career and his storytelling techniques. Because I think I know more now. I've definitely read a lot more of his work. We'll see. We'll see. Will Eisner. Yeah, I probably should do one about Will Eisner. The closest I came to that was I did do an episode on books about making comic books, and I did go into some deep detail on his book, The Dreamer, in that, which is sort of like a fictionalized version of his story, so I talk about some of that. Episodes on defunct publishers like Eclipse or First, always a possibility. I love talking about that stuff, especially because it was sort of like the 80s stuff, and I love that was when I really got into comics. Eric Powell, love Eric Powell. I haven't done Wally Wood. I haven't done Alex Toth. Certainly both super interesting and influential people that are worthy of my time and yours. Hi, cat. Oh, look. We've got a little cameo. What do we have here? We have a big cat. Hi. Hi. Gil Kane. Yep, I love Gil Kane, Ricky Ray. I love kissing the cat, too. Do you guys have pets? Do you like to just bury your face in their soft fur? Feels so relaxing. These are great suggestions. These are all people I have considered. Like, and hope to cover all of them. Literally. Like, there's none of them that I'm like, no, I won't do that. No. Little Bean. That's this guy. I tend to call him Bean Sprout. He was born Little Bean. This is my guy. Everybody likes seeing you. Hey, sister, are you still there? Look. A pet. It's a baby. What about an episode about how companies license comics to foreign markets? Possibly, Miguel. Tough to sometimes get the material from abroad. You know, like I could talk to it, but I'd love to have visuals to go with it. Windsor McKay, I'd love to do. Is Little Bean a nickname or his actual name? That's the name Chrissy gave him. That is his birth name. He was born Little Bean. I have 2 kittens. They like to bury their faces in my fur. I have 2 cats, one of which is slightly overweight ginger cat I love to bury my face in. You should do an episode on the best cats in comics. Mwah. More cats, please. Genie's waving to you. Sergio Tappi, yes. Frank Frazetta, trust me, I love Frank Frazetta. I'm so glad I got to go to his museum once and talk to his wife. That was a real treat and privilege. Want to go down? You want to get down? Here. Oh, you want to get up here. All right. He's an old man. He just turned 16 on the 5th. What's that? 4 days ago. 4 days ago he turned 16. Finn Harrison says that Biggs the cat is Joe Quinones' cat that he puts in Howard the Duck. That's cool. Dex says my sister has a Yorkie that is the softest little guard dog. I love animals. I'm glad that so many of you have pets. I am leaning strongly towards trying to argue the case that I should be allowed to adopt an Aussie Doodle. I think that's the kind of dog that would work well for our household. Because Chrissy wants one that's kind of small, not, doesn't shed a lot, and I want one that's, smart enough to be fairly obedient and is a good, walking buddy. So right now, that's the one I'm leaning towards. But I don't think it'll happen that soon, to be honest. Joe Quesada always drew his cat socks in his comics. That's great. That's awesome. My boyfriend is condensing his 33,000 comic collection, and I feel useless. How would you recommend I help him? That's a tough question, Carrie. How could you be helpful? I mean, just anyone. How could they be helpful? I mean, if you're willing to get some bags and boards to help them sort of be protected, that's always a generous little gift to help. Beyond that, maybe offer if it would be helpful to sort of do a spreadsheet or just sort of honestly just being present if somebody wanted to sit down and organize, but have somebody to talk to while they're doing that, because it can be pretty quiet work otherwise. Those are all things that might be helpful. It's very kind of you to want to do that. A diverse look at the many depictions of Conan the Barbarian. Frazetta, Buscema, Kane. Yeah, maybe. Barry Windsor Smith. My gremlin is currently asking for attention. She's on my chest licking my shirt. That's awesome. Pets make our lives better. I don't trust people that just don't like animals. You know, like if somebody says, I don't like animals, I'm like, I don't trust you. My dog Bear is rewatching Clone Wars with me. What a patient dog. You know, I think, if I'm remembering right, Robert Kirkman's old dog was called Bear. He's a big dog. I think I'm just about done. I'm going to wrap this show up in just a moment. We got the news out. We talked about, I think all the news that I wanted to cover. We did the mini reviews of all the free comic book day stuff, of which there was a lot. Let me just recap with my sort of pick of the week for the free comic book day books. The ones that I would recommend finding if you haven't been able to would include Barbaric. I thought that was really cool. That was a good free comic book day that interested me. I think Clementine is strong. I do. And I thought that while it was kind of short, Ninja Turtles was like definitely a fun and interesting one that interested me in what's coming next. As far as like popular ones out there, it sounds like people really want to get their hands on if they're looking for either Dark Crisis or Spider-Man Venom, which I thought were fine. No knocks against them or anything. But I thought that the most interesting ones were Ninja Turtles because, like I say, it plays on the original and then it reprints the original Ninja Turtles story, which I just thought was a great value. I thought Clementine was a cool new entry point into the world of Walking Dead. It's not going to be a total gore fest. It's just going to be a character-based drama, but I thought it looked cool. And Barbaric, like, just coming out of nowhere with, like, an interesting concept, badass artwork, and it's really thick. It's a really thick, big book. So I can't even say, like, oh, this is a good value, because they're all free, supposedly, but this is worth paying money for. So anyway, we got Obi-Wan, the show, coming out like, this week? Or is it next week? I totally forget. But we've got it coming out soon. Hopefully it's fun. I like Star Wars, so hopefully this is a good show. Just going to use my kneaded eraser here to clean up some of the underlying pencil lines, which maybe you can't see too well on this camera, but it makes me feel more comfortable with my drawing if it's cleaner to my eye. Makes me feel like I actually accomplished something. Thank you all for the questions tonight and the super chats. Oh, you know what I never really talked about? I don't want to spoil it, but and I won't. But I saw Doctor Strange 2, and I liked it. I'm not going to say that it's one of the top 5 MCU movies or anything like that. It's not. But the MCU movies are generally pretty entertaining no matter what, and this is no exception. Here's what I liked about it. I am a fan of Sam Raimi. I saw Evil Dead when I was relatively young, and I was like, oh, I like this guy's style, and I've watched everything he's done since. Steve, thanks for the super chat. He says, pro tip, water is good, stay hydrated. Yes, I always have a water bottle close by these days. That's good advice. Doctor Strange 2 definitely feels like a Sam Raimi movie. It doesn't feel like, he was just slotted in to just do things. Chris Sears, thank you. Take care, all stay safe. That's a really generous super chat. I appreciate that a lot. So it does feel like his. It's got all the sort of camera work that you'd expect. It's got the sort of cameos that you'd hope for with Sam Raimi, and then some. It's got good cameos. It doesn't have every cameo that's been rumored, okay? There's been like 20 rumored characters from all sorts of different like Marvel type projects. They're not all in there. By far they are not. Don't go there for the cameos. Just be pleasantly surprised by the few that you get. But it was a cool story. I liked it. It's a pretty simple story in a lot of ways, but I thought it was like one of the more complex villains in a Marvel movie, or at least antagonists. And I like the camera work. It definitely has. It uses its PG-13 rating. It has a few little moments of sort of gore or a surprise scare, because Sam Raimi is just good at that horror stuff. He just is. Thanks, Daniel. So it felt like something he would create. And it was nice to see him back, because it's been quite a while since he's directed something. I think the last movie was that Oz movie, which was not great. He did do the pilot episode of Ash versus the Evil Dead, but even that was like 5 or 6 years ago now. So it's been a while since we've got to see him, and I really enjoyed it. I think that most people would enjoy it. Benedict Cumberbatch is a really good actor. So's Elizabeth Olsen. So's Benedict Wong. There's some really strong actors in this franchise. I wouldn't say that Rachel McAdams has a whole lot to do. She's there again. Chiwetel Ejiofor doesn't have a whole lot to do, but he's got they both have good roles for what is there. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I think it is fun. There've been like 5 movies in the sort of phase 4, right? There's been Black Widow, Eternals, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and one that I'm not thinking of. Shang-Chi. I would say that the Spider-Man movie out of those 5 is my favorite, and this is maybe my second favorite out of those 5. Yeah, I'm upset that Ash vs. Evil Dead got canceled too, man. At the same time, it did end at enough of a point that it was decent closure. Of course I stayed for the after-credit scenes. Yes, I always stay to the very end. Good final credit thing. Yep, very good, very good. It blew my mind when I realized Elizabeth Olsen is the younger sister of the Olsen twins. Yes, she is. I wanted to see it, but I'm sick, so I have to wait. I know, Jeans. I hope you feel better real soon, okay? Is Bessie the name of his Oldsmobile, or his old car? Is that the name of his car, Victor? I think it is. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm done with this artwork for this episode. I'm going to take off. I really appreciate you guys being here. I will just keep your eyes out for the next Comic Tropes episode. I'm aiming to have that up within the next several hours. I just have to wrap up a little bit of editing, render, upload. That all takes a little bit of time, but it should be up pretty soon, and I think that it'll be something a lot of people will like. It's a really interesting to see how much influential stuff came through one guy in a pretty short amount of time. All right, folks, I'm going to take off. Oh, Bessie the Vampire Cow. Excuse me. I thought that was the name of a car. Whoops. Y'all are great. Keep reading comics.